everyone, and welcome to Path to the Priesthood, the podcast where we sit down with Greek Orthodox clergymen from around the country, and we ask them what it was that led them to ordained ministry and service in Christ's Church. I'll be your host, Christo. We have a very special guest for you today, Father Kosmas Kallis from Chicago. But before we hear from Father Kosmas, let's hear a little bit about his background. Born in Livonia, Michigan, is that how you say it, Father? Got it, okay. Born in Livonia, Michigan, Father Kosmas was shaped by the church. He served as an altar boy in his home parish and participated in GOYA, summer camp, and the CrossRoad Institute. He earned a BA in religious studies from Hellenic College in 2012 and an MDiv with high distinction, very nice, from Holy Cross Greek Orthodox School of Theology in 2014. Soon after graduation, Father Kosmas joined the Saints Peter and Paul Parish as a full-time youth director, a position he held until 2018, and was subsequently appointed Director of Youth and Young Adult Ministries. He was ordained to the Holy Diaconate in October of 2015 and to the Holy Priesthood in March of 2016. Father Kosmas is married to Anna Kallis and together have two children, Jonah and Mara. Father Kosmas, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining us today.
Christo, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Awesome.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you too. This is long overdue. This is the classic example of, two guys who have known each other through mutual friends at the seminary. And we've met on occasion once or twice at Dean Tigas's wedding, actually, which was a lot of fun. But aside from that, I don't know anything about your story or your path to the priesthood. So we're very excited to welcome you and for you to tell us all what your own personal path to the priesthood was.
Yeah, thank you. Is that where we first met, Christo? Is that right?
I think it was. I think we had, we were in the fantasy football league before that, but I think the first time we actually met was Dean Tigas's wedding in Tarpon.
It's the funny thing about fantasy football, like we felt like we knew each other and then we actually met each other. So yeah. There it is. Yeah, exactly. Nice. Cool. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate the invite and it's fun to be here. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. So now, what was we heard from your bio that you grew up in the church, obviously, like that up in Michigan, but what happened there between church and school and high school, I guess, because you went to Hellenic College for undergrad. So what was going on in the high school or even earlier days for a young, and back then you were Mikey Kallis, right? Because that's
right.
Mikey Kallis, and now you're Father Kosmas. So why don't you tell us a little bit about growing up as Mikey Kallis?
Yeah. And so that's something important to say, which is that all my friends and family, like growing up, called me Mikey, except for at camp, everyone called me Cosmo, because my baptismal name has always been Kosmas. Even from birth, I was baptized Kosmas because of the Maki ending. So when they named my dad after his papu, they took the Maki of Kosmaki, the kind of pet name for Kosmas. Yeah. And they put Maki, Mikey, Michael, and I'm named after my dad. And so
Michael came from that.
Isn't that funny? Sometimes I think that'll also happen with the name Gerasimos. They'll call them Mikey, Gerasimaki. Anyway, fun little fact for you there. But yeah, so I grew up in Metro Detroit. Definitely a proud and also despondent Lions fan and all Detroit sports fan, of course.
Right, yeah.
A little hockey's my game. I'm a big Red Wings fan, but. Yeah, I would say, growing up, we didn't go to church that often, as young kids. I would say the point in my life when the church really impacted me was after my parents got divorced, which, you got a 50% chance of that happening if you're, a child in this country. So, sure. Not to say that was anything, it was a standard thing that happens, right? And but what I would say is what I found was in that period of time, the first 10 years, especially after divorce, when parents are still adjusting to their new lives, oftentimes the kids can kind of be in the middle of that tension. And for me, there were two places where I really just felt like really at peace in that difficult time frame. And those two places were the Holy Altar. I served as an altar boy growing up. And the other place where that really was true, most especially, was at camp. I went to the Metropolis of Detroit summer camp growing up. I loved it. And it was just, I felt really at peace there, not only because of the people there, but also the beautiful setting and stuff. And so, I knew that the church was kind of a sacred, special place I had met really, quality friends at church. And so I kind of thought about it, I kind of thought about that, but I wouldn't say I was feeling like, I was going to be a priest or anything in those years, growing up. And so, I kind of the standard upbringing in a suburban, metropolitan area of America, and made some good friends. Really had just a couple really close friends in high school. I went to CrossRoad in 2006 when I was 16 years old.
Oh, whoa.
And that was really, so that was the third year they did it. I think,
I was going to say, I didn't even know it was around back then. Yeah.
Yeah. So So I think 2024 will be 20 years. I think they started in 04. And so that was really cool, because it was like camp, but got much more intense in terms of really starting to understand a little bit of theology and a little bit of scripture and a little bit of, how deep and rich our faith is.
Yeah.
So that, that was there. And then, beyond that, after I graduated, I wasn't really sure what to do. My dad's a building contractor, and as any good Greek dad would, he wanted me to get into the family business and do that. And I learned a lot, all of those years, even from middle school. I worked with my dad and for my dad every weekend, all summer. I learned a lot, during that time in my life, about not just about construction, but just about hard work and management and those sorts of things. So I was kind of unsure, and so I ended up eventually going to Central Michigan University, which is, kind of a standard state school in the state of Michigan. It's up by not too far from East Lansing, where the Spartans are. Most Greeks know the Michigan State Spartans, right?
Cool. So it's up there. Okay, on the Michigan State side. Okay. Wait. So are you a Michigan State fan or Michigan fan then, or neither?
Any good Michigander would say I can't be either, because I didn't go to either school. But I would say the majority of people who grew up in Metro Detroit root for the University of Michigan, because it's, generally speaking, pretty close, unless they went to one of the two schools.
Gotcha.
So I root for Michigan. I was happy they beat Ohio State this year, for sure. Yeah. Cool. So yeah. So then that's kind of when things really started to come to a head. When I was going to Central Michigan, I was studying entrepreneurialism. I was interested in that for sure. Like, I liked the business side of things for sure. But I always kind of had this unscratched itch, if you will, just wondering about the seminary, wondering about the priesthood, remembering how much I loved camp. And one thing that kind of made that fester was my older two sisters and my older cousin. And my older cousin, Father Perry, he's actually a priest now up in the Twin Cities in Minnesota. He's like a big brother to me. We're super close. He's my best friend. And so I'd go visit them, right? So every, once a year, every semester, I just kind of end up, I was always out in Boston, and I was getting to know.
You were visiting him while he was at the seminary.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's how okay. Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. So these guys are, they're 4 and 6 years older than me. So I was kind of out there, and, I got a little taste of the campus, and so it kept kind of becoming something that I thought, man, I really feel like I need to come and see,
Yeah.
I didn't feel sure I want to be a priest, honestly. I just felt like I wanted to seek that out, but to make that decision was the hardest decision I made in my life, because my dad, my dad's a building contractor. I was on the business track.
Oh yeah. And he probably had no, preconceived notion that you might ever, he probably just thought, okay, I'm teaching my son all this stuff. He'll just take it up naturally with me, and I will pass the baton to him. But so that would have been a very interesting conversation, or I don't even know how you would have begun to broach that. Interesting.
Yeah, for sure. It was tough for me, and I felt like I was letting him down, because I care about my family and the family company and all that. And so what actually happened is I did everything to plan to go in the summer of 2009.
Okay.
I was going to transfer. So I graduated high school in 2007. So I'm about 2 years through college. I'm going to go I was planning to go in the fall of 2009. And I was wrestling so much. I mean, I had applied, got in, told everyone I was going, and then I recoiled. Backed out. I flaked out. I was like really wrestling with this decision,
Yeah.
So anyway, I kept thinking about it. I went through that fall semester, and then I remember distinctly. I was walking home from the bus stop on campus where they dropped me at my apartment complex. And I was walking in my apartment, and I remember just stopping at one point, and the thought just ran across my head, like, will you regret it if you don't at least go for one semester? And I thought, absolutely. Like, if I turned 40 tomorrow, I thought,
Oh,
and I don't go at least for one semester to check the place out at this point in my life, I'm really going to regret it. So that thought came across my mind. I thought, fine, I'm doing this. I know I need to do it. And so I did. So January of 2010? Yeah, January of 2010. I moved out to Boston, and the rest was history. I met some of my best friends there, Kumbadi there. I met my wife there, and it just increased. And it felt like I was at camp, honestly. I mean, for me, the seminary always felt like being at camp, but just every day in a little bit more of a serious way, right? I mean, learning about the faith, and all those sorts of things. And so,
yeah, there's no Olympics at the seminary or evening events, or anything like that. But the daily schedule of the services mixed with like the meals and classes instead of sessions. It is very camp-like. You're around other Orthodox people, which is a very unique environment that you really only have at a summer camp, aside from the seminary. But that's very interesting that your whole life kind of fell into place, really, all based on like a kind of a choice you made out of indecision. Really, it wasn't, some guys are like, yeah, for sure, I'm going right after high school, or I'm going right after college, I know this place exists, I don't care what it takes, I'm just going to go there. But for you, like, kind of dead in the middle of like, okay, family business, I could go one way, I'm in college right now, or I can give this a shot. And it was the give it a shot mentality that really, it was all you needed to take you the rest of the way. That's pretty amazing. And to remember that specific moment, just as simple as getting off the bus, that's pretty cool. It's a special experience, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure you have friends too, who you went to school with, men or women, who knew that they wanted to study theology or knew they wanted to become a priest. And I mean, I think that's amazing. And I know some amazing people who just knew, and for me, it was totally take a shot. And I kind of approached it the whole way. Like, I was like, let's start with one semester. Okay, let's finish college here. Okay, let's apply for grad school, graduate, and then then I got married somewhere in the middle of all that. And then, okay, let's go and pursue the priesthood and take that step. So, which was helpful for me. I needed to take the process in bite-sized pieces, I think, at that point in my life.
So, and now that's interesting too, because from your bio, it sounded like you were out of the school, you'd graduated the seminary for a while, and you were working a lay position at Saints Peter and Paul in Chicago, and then you were ordained a couple years later, correct?
Roughly. So I started at Saints Peter and Paul in January of 2015.
Okay.
And I was ordained. I was a priest by the next spring. So within a year and a few months, I had been ordained a deacon and a priest. So in 2016, I was ordained to the priesthood, and I remained there for about 3 more years. So I was there for 4 years, 3 as assistant priest and youth director, and 1 year as unordained as a youth director.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. And then not to speed through the story here, but you are the youth director of the Metropolis of Chicago?
Yes. So in the spring of 2018, we got a new hierarch, His Eminence Metropolitan Nathaniel, who succeeded His Eminence Metropolitan Iakovos of blessed memory.
Right.
And that following February of 2019, His Eminence appointed me the director of youth and young adult ministries for the Chicago Metropolis, which is my role currently as well. So I've been in this role for about 3.5 years.
Wow. Now there's a lot to dissect here. Let's go back first. My first question would be, how does, especially like being someone who went to the seminary without necessarily the goal or the intent of becoming a priest, you did become a priest, and so how was ordained ministry different than maybe you had perceived while at the school, or and how did it maybe live up to your expectations that the school prepared you for? What was it like at Saints Peter and Paul, being a young ordained priest at a pretty, if I'm not mistaken, pretty large parish in Chicago, right? With a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
It's a historic community. I have some family at that church, and so it's
Yeah.
a pretty happening place. So what was that like fresh out of the seminary?
Yeah. I would say, in terms of doing the things that it takes to be a priest, pastorally, even some administratively, and even, I would say some of just like the theologically concerning items such as preaching, Bible study, etc. We got some good tools from the seminary. I don't think it was much different from what I expected. Probably in part from what I learned in the seminary, but also, I mean, my spiritual father, Father Dimitri Tonius, he's one who definitely lived out, and I mean, I knew him from when I was a young teen. He showed me a very clear picture of what the priesthood would look like, and I would say it was consistent. It's been consistent with that, by and large. Of course, some things are unexpected. Once I got to the parish, I would say I really benefited from two things. One is the head priest at the time was Father Panioti Basnos, who, it was kind of a unique arrangement. He's just a couple of years older than me, but he was the proestamino, and rightfully so. I mean, he really he's a man beyond his years. So we had this really nice working relationship, and also I benefited from the fact that we had a parish that, in some ways, needed a rebound with a lot of its youth ministries. Sure. However, there were many people who had thought fondly on years gone by who were ready to take action. So I was just kind of like the orchestra conductor, just like, let's bring everyone together and start doing these ministries. So I learned so much so rapidly from those two parties once I got into it, from Father Panioti and from, in so many ways, from the parish leaders who were all dynamic parishes. Peter and Paul is definitely a bigger parish in Chicago, and it's ministry heavy. I mean, they probably have 30 ministries or something like that. It's very ministry heavy.
That's amazing. That's almost like an ideal situation to come fresh out of the seminary into a place with a proestamenos who you are close in age with, who understands probably the things that you want to have happen at the community. Sounded like the people were ready for like the right things to happen, and so it was a perfect coming together. That's pretty like that's a pretty ideal situation, I would say, for ministry and for learning a lot of things very quickly, which we often have to do in parish ministry. So wow, that's I'm sure that was a unique time in your ministry that you'll probably always look back fondly on.
Totally, yeah. I mean, and the other thing that's really cool, which I should have mentioned, is that it also happened to be my wife's home parish. So it was like,
you had it made.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, I will always think fondly on that. Everyone was cheering for me because I was Anna's husband. Eventually, a few years later, she became Father K's wife. You know what I mean? It kind of shifted.
So finally you were. That's right. You finally established yourself. Yeah.
So I would say it was an ideal situation, and I remember it fondly. I made, it definitely has become my Chicago home. You know what I mean? That parish, I feel at home there. I know so many families there.
That's cool, because that was going to be one of my next questions. Now, it's very unique. I think you're our first priest that we've had on the program that is not a parish priest. Yeah, I think you are the first one, right? You are, because you are the director of youth and young adult ministries for the metropolis of Chicago. So I assume during the week you're at the metropolis headquarters, which are, where are they in Chicago? I'm not even sure. Are they downtown by the cathedral?
No, we are in a western suburb of Chicago called Lombard, in an office building.
Okay. Okay, and so you're there during the week, and then on Sundays, can you go wherever you want? Are you assigned to a parish? What's the protocol there?
Yeah, good question. So about almost 50% of the year, something for the youth office requires me to go somewhere, right? So we have fall, summer, winter camp. That's almost 10 weekends a year. Staff trainings. We'll go through the weekend. Our young adult ministries, our y'all conference, those types of events. Oftentimes we'll have a Sunday element to them.
You guys are cooking over there. That's awesome.
we keep busy for sure. Yeah. We do young adult retreats and those sorts of things. And then when I'm not doing, about half of the year doing those things, I've done various things in the last few years. Like, for example, I've supported at a particular parish for a period of time.
Sure.
Or if I'm not doing that, maybe I travel a bit more and try to go to more of the outskirts of the metropolis to connect people with the ministries that make sense, or help establish ministries in those locations as
Man,
well.
that's amazing. That's kind of like,
Yeah.
for to be a young priest, especially, that's kind of like, that's a very cool position. There are so many parishes that don't have the means to have like a youth director, or even parishes that do have youth directors. Like they need a lot of help, right? There's a lot of parishes that need a lot of help, and to have, I guess the metropolis of Chicago would work that way. You guys are all, near the city, although you have churches far away, but to be able to have someone like yourself who can go to those parishes, offer the kids and the people there something, give a little talk, or even just to connect them to what's going on at the metropolis. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. It's fun. I mean, I'll say, it's certainly the reason why this position enticed me. Like, I still felt I had the energy to stay a little bit focused on youth and young adult ministry. I had already been getting involved in camp. I'd already gotten really involved with our Y'all Chicago ministry. And so I was just like, I would love for this to be my job for a few more years, so that, I can keep working in this vein before my kids get too old. And, life,
Yeah.
there generally speaking tends to be a time frame on how long you can be busy half the weekends of the year, or those sorts of things. And so that's exactly right. That's what intrigued me about this role.
That's very cool. And I mean, I think even right now we can see you're wearing your, I think it says Fanari Clergy. Is that what your shirt says?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
As we speak right now, where are you, Father Kosmas? Would you like to?
Yeah. So I'm in southeastern Wisconsin right now. We have a retreat center called the St. Iakovos Retreat Center. It's about roughly an hour or so from Chicagoland, depending on where you're coming from, north in Wisconsin. So we're in our 5th of 5 one-week sessions of summer camp. The kids are running around right now. Yeah.
Awesome.
We do 5 one-week sessions of summer camp, and also we do during one of those sessions we do a new camp called Lighthouse for 12th grade graduates. So that's kind of what our summer looks like in the youth office.
That's amazing. I mean, it truly sounds like you guys in Chicago are firing on all cylinders as far as like youth and young adult activities and stuff. I mean, a 5-week camp for people that are watching, that's a pretty, that is a very significant amount of time to run a summer camp. Like, 3 weeks is many would consider like a full season at camp. So to go 2 extra weeks, I mean, you guys must have tons of kids coming through.
Yeah, our capacity is about 800 total for a summer. I think this year we'll just touch 700. So we're still kind of bouncing back from COVID. But
of course,
yeah, I mean, we benefit from the fact that in the Chicagoland area, so many, in the metropolis of Chicago, so many parishes are in the Chicagoland area, Northwest Indiana, Southeast Wisconsin, etc. We get a bus that comes up from St. Louis one week because they're in our metropolis. So there we have a sister camp in Minnesota called St. Mary's Camp.
Oh.
So, but they service pretty much just the Twin Cities area.
Gotcha.
So yeah, it keeps us busy, and thank God it's, as you've noticed, I'm sure in your work, one of the ministries that is growing, and so we want to take advantage of that.
For sure. Now, what does it mean for you as someone who, like you said, as a kid, your happy places were the Holy Altar, which is awesome, and then the other one was summer camp, and so obviously you had a successful summer camp experience as a child. So what does it mean for you to like be able to offer that to kids now, like to now be the one offering something else that can be a safe place or a happy place for kids? Is this a full circle type of a moment for you, or is it because I mean there are many challenges with camping ministry. Is very unique, and it is intense, I will say. It's long days. Yeah. It's little sleep, but I would imagine that the rewards make it all worth it.
Totally, yeah. I would say that what has become fulfilling has changed between the time that I was, a theologian or a priest who would come to camp for a week,
sure,
and now that I'm the director of camp. and that is when I was coming to camp and with the campers doing Orthodox life, etc. It was exactly what you said, Christo. It was this full circle thing where I'm like, this is such a blessing to be able to kind of, engage with young people in their life at this point in their lives. What's happening now, and what's really fulfilling now, is actually more of the work that I get to do with the counselors. Honestly, I
Oh,
don't see the campers.
that's
I
right.
don't know them all by name anymore. In a week, in a week, years ago, I would probably know most of the campers by name by the end of the week, as anyone would, right?
Yeah.
So I would say that's become really fulfilling, especially because what I've noticed is the more engaged counselors, especially ones who do the whole 5 weeks with us, all of a sudden they're kind of becoming youth workers who want to do more at the
Yeah.
parish or at another camp, and so seeing how just kind of bringing them together around this common purpose then bears more fruit
Yes.
is super fulfilling as well. So I'd say those two things.
That is cool because I'm sure the counselors in some, obviously they're older, but they become kind of your campers, and you're kind of like a super counselor that is there for, obviously when you're a regular camp counselor, you're there for the kids, and the kids lean on you. You make sure that their skits are awesome, that they're having a good time, that they're not missing home. Like you're there for the kids, but then the counselors in turn need someone to kind of lean on because they're giving so much to the kids, and they have each other, of course. They form, many amazing friendships are formed at camp, but then you're kind of that spiritual shoulder for them to lean on at camp too. So really, I guess it never ends, and that is cool because, like you said, those kids maybe will be the kids to give a shot at HC, or a semester a shot at HCHC, and then maybe they'll get that scratch like you said, and maybe they won't know completely, but they had these positive experiences under the setting of the church, and so they go kind of explore it the rest of the way at HCHC, and I think that's what it's all about, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. So often, it happens every year where one or two or more counselors kind of open up and share about how they have had that thought, and what do you do with that. My guess is that camp's probably one of the few places they actually talk about that thought.
Right.
So it's really nice, and it's nice to encourage them, at least. That was the advice Father D gave to me. Like, if you have the inkling to go to the school, you at least need to go visit the place, and not just it's not just an idea that every single young person has as they're considering what they're going to do with their life. Like, if that thought comes across your mind, you don't have to become a priest, you don't have to become a nun, you don't have to become a theologian,
Sure.
whatever. Just go and scratch the itch and see if it's something more serious in your heart.
Yeah. Now, this is interesting too because I believe you're the third guest on our podcast who has mentioned that Father Dimitri Tonius is that has mentioned that Father Dimitri Tonius is their spiritual father. So can you explain a little bit for us who Father Dimitri is? And I knew obviously he was the dean of the cathedral in Boston, which makes sense, like close proximity to the school. But obviously there must be something special about the man if so many of you young clergymen have him as a spiritual father.
Sure, yeah. So Father Dimitri Tonius, he's a priest. Obviously, he's a second career priest, as we called them back at school, meaning he was a bridge engineer before he moved to the seminary.
Huh.
and continued studying there. He grew up in upstate New York, and then after seminary, because upstate New York is in the metropolis of Detroit, he ended up going back to the metropolis of Detroit. Yeah, I know Detroit is a very uniquely shaped metropolis. It's like upstate New York, Michigan, and it goes straight south basically from there.
Huh.
But Father D came to my home parish when I was 13 years old. And he really especially connected first and foremost with my older cousin, Father Perry, who I mentioned earlier.
Oh.
And Father Perry basically being my older brother, we started going to Orthodox together.
Wait, now how old were you?
Like, he was a senior in high school and I was a freshman.
The high school kids going to Orthodox, like truly, I can't tell you enough how like mind blowing that is. Like, obviously, Orthos is usually get a handful of elderly parishioners, maybe, but for high school kids to be going to Orthos is it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And just to paint that picture more, at that time, Father Perry had a red Mach 1 Ford Mustang.
Ooh.
So we were we were rolling a church. It was kind of funny, you know what I mean? We're these two high school guys. And the reason why I went is because obviously, Perry started getting much more interested in the church himself too. He already had an interest, it was growing. And it was because Father D, he's a teacher, I mean, he's a priest, but what really he is, if you were to boil down his priesthood to like what his stick is, that he was always teaching, explaining things. He would always have us huddled around the proscomidi table. I mean, we were in high school, this is what this is, and this is why we do this, etc. He then went to, Father Dimitri then went back to Boston in the early 2000s and continued studying, got his second graduate degree, got his THM, I believe, and then got his PhD from BC, and subsequently, which, as you know, ended up becoming an adjunct professor at HCHC, which was kind of, really his dream, like to be able to serve there. And along the way, by the time he got to Boston, I think there were 4 or 5 of us who were spiritual sons that became priests. Wow. And now I think there's at least 10 of us who, through our experience of getting to know, what's so special about Father D is that he's extremely good at connecting and being practical and engaging people, and at the same time extremely intelligent and can get as deep as you want to go. I mean, like, so on the one hand, you'll be literally playing video games with him, and on the other hand, you'll be talking like deep patristic theology where you're trying to understand what words they're, like, if they're speaking English still, you know what I'm saying? Like when they're talking. And so, that was probably the coolest, that was probably the impact he had, at least I can speak for myself, but, so yeah. And so, definitely, he had a huge impact in my life at an important time. And so, and helped guide me, along the way into the priesthood.
That's awesome. It's very important to have those guys out there like that, leading the way for us, and it's always reassuring to know that no matter what question you might have, or what experience or what situation you might have at a parish, that there's someone who's, maybe it hasn't gone through the same exact thing, but has seen something similar and has learned how to handle them the best way. And it's always easy to learn from a very respectable veteran priest like that. So that's very cool. Yeah. Now, you've had a variety of different roles as a priest. You're a parish priest right out of the seminary at a big booming parish in Chicago. Now the director of youth and young adult ministry, and you're jamming full time, it sounds like, with retreats and stuff. So I'm just curious, Father Kosmas, what would you say for you, what are the greatest joys of the priesthood? And every guest has said something a little different. So I'll give you, I know it's not an easy question to always answer, so I'll let you, think about it for a bit. But yeah, in your words, what are the greatest joys of the priesthood?
Yeah, I think that the greatest joy, or to add joy and blessing of the priesthood, is to have the opportunity to walk with people both at the best and worst times of their lives. Yes. Because those periods of time are extremely sacred moments in people's lives, because they're, more impactful in some way. They are probably going to stick with them in a more unique way, and really just to walk with people in those moments, and generally, but especially in those moments, brings so much joy, whether it's, experiencing the most exciting moments at camp, or, talking to someone about, one of the most difficult things they might have experienced. One of our young adults, lost their mother, in her early 20s. To be in that room and to be present is it a joy? It's a blessing for sure, and it's a joy on the grand scale to be able to continue to walk with people in their lives and really just try to be present more than anything else, and to try to bring the love of Christ as best as possible to them.
Right. No, very, very well said. Yeah, it's interesting you said even about, like, at the most difficult moments, people will often ask, like, every once in a while, parish goes through a stretch where there's, multiple funerals back to back or something, and people will say, oh, geez, aren't you depressed? Isn't it depressing doing funeral after funeral? Of course, like those are sad occasions for sure, but it's in those occasions when you can, like, there's real healing to be done. And so for that reason, sometimes surprisingly, the funerals and the sad times can be some of the most beautiful, because that's where there's a real reconnection with Christ in some way. And so even in the saddest moments, there are blessings to be found for sure.
Yeah. Oh, no question.
What's that?
I said no question.
Yeah, for sure. And so now I'm curious to ask you this next question, because there are a lot of people, I think, these days that are probably in the same spot you were right after high school. They're looking to take a certain direction in life, and they're not quite sure which direction is the right direction, right? They're hammered with questions, where are you going to go to school? What are you going to major in? What career are you trying to pursue? And so for those people who might have an itch themselves, or maybe they don't even have an itch and never thought that a school of theology would be a place that they would go explore, what would you say to those people at this kind of crossroad in life? And from your own experiences, what would you say to them?
Yeah, good question. I think the first thing I would say to anyone who's kind of in that transition period from high school into college is you really don't need to know much. And you are kind of told implicitly and explicitly that you have to have everything figured out.
Yeah.
And that's just so not true. Like, go ask 10 people what they majored in college and see how many of them are actually working in a field really connected with that.
So true.
I bet you wouldn't even be 50%, right? So first and foremost, and you don't even have to go to college, right? I mean, trade school is so needed right now in our country. Like, so pace yourself, take your time, breathe, because what I found, especially, in our 12th grader camp, is there's so much pressure. I mean, these kids are in a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
And they feel that way for understandable reasons. But at the same time, there's really it's not necessary for them to be in that position. But the pressures of our society, sometimes of parents, I think puts them in a pressure cooker. So I think diffusing that pressure is important. And specifically to your question, especially, I would give the same advice that I was given. If someone feels like they have any inclining to pursue theology, whether it's at HCHC or, at a distinct theological school anywhere in our country, with so many of them, I would give the advice I was given, which is scratch that itch.
Yeah.
And I would especially give that advice to any women listening out there who are young people. So often we think that Hellenic College, Holy Cross, or being a theologian in the church is a job for a man who's a priest.
Right.
And that's the majority for sure, but that is certainly not the fact, right? I mean, you've had classmates, I've had classmates. My wife studied at Holy Cross. There's so many unbelievable female theologians who contribute so much to the church in so many different ways, as psychologists, as professors, as youth workers, etc. So go scratch the itch and just see what happens, and take it one step at a time, one bite-sized portion at a time.
Very good. Yeah, and actually, I think the school now has a new program where it's like a 1 year. I think it's like a 1 year certificate program to become a youth director, which I think is very valuable too. I think it's good for, like you said, for young men and women that want to go serve the church in some capacity. And no, it doesn't mean you're going to go directly become a priest, a nun, a monk, or anything like that. But it gives you the opportunity, to serve the church in a more official capacity than you might be able to as a volunteer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, Father Kosmas, I must ask, when you're not on youth retreats and you're not at summer camp and you're not at the church on Sunday, how you spend your free time? What is Father Kosmas doing, when he's not wearing the collar, so to speak?
Yeah. Good question. Whenever that, happens to happen, free time, we try our best to have a good balance on that as best as we can. One thing I do, the one thing I make sure I always do for myself is I play hockey. I'm in a men's league, and that has just probably been, like, honest. It might sound silly, but it's been probably the most important outlet for me, just because, it's just a good old sweaty locker room, a bunch of, other men who are poor at playing hockey, generally speaking,
Yeah,
like myself, right? We go have fun. It's a good workout. And it's just nice to kind of get away from everything, you know what I mean?
yeah.
And to have that hour and a half to,
Your own,
just to
world.
play.
Yeah, and that's interesting because I know you and our good friend Dean Tigas. Dean's obviously the hockey man. I didn't know that you were like a hockey guy. I knew you were a hockey fan, but I didn't know you play yourself. And I think that's one thing as a football player that I'm jealous about when it comes to like hockey or basketball, is that you guys have pickup leagues where you can, you can play just like you played in high school or something. Which with hockey it is surprising because it is a very physical sport. But obviously we can't really do that with football, or we'd end up with broken arms and legs and all kinds of injuries.
Yeah.
So you can't do that when you get older. But I think that's what's awesome about like hockey and basketball. You guys still have that outlet to go and have fun just
Totally.
like when you're a kid.
Yeah, totally. And it's toned down, like there's no checking or anything. But Dean and I actually used to play at seminary together in a drop-in league. We played the men's league together. He's much better than me. I mean, it's not even close, but he was kind enough to play at a level that we both could play. He was one of the better players on the team, and I was one of the stragglers, but it worked. So yeah, we really enjoyed that. I also, sorry about the noise. I also spend, in my free time, I'm always spending as much time with my kids and my wife as possible. I mean,
awesome.
Always trying to just go do fun, different things. We live in an area where you can basically do so many different things, in Chicagoland area. So we try to take advantage of that and have as much fun as we can together and get quality time together.
That's awesome. In Chicago, like you said, there is so much to do. And Chicago is probably, one of the coolest cities in the country, I would say. And so now I have to ask, because you're, as local as it gets, what is the best Greek restaurant in Chicago? There's some controversy lately. I know it's Greek Islands. Maybe it's not Greek Islands anymore. And I don't want to start any controversy, but what would you say, your go-to Greek restaurant in Chicago?
Oh man, you're going to get me in trouble if anyone in Chicago watches this, because, I know a lot of restaurant owners in Chicago, but the best Greek restaurant that serves Greek food, I want everyone out here to hear what I'm saying. So not a Greek-owned restaurant that doesn't serve Greek food necessarily, just to say. I'm going to give you two. One is a sit-down and one is fast casual. So I have to do two. So the best sit-down is Platia. It's in the suburbs. And they just have really good, a little bit of fusion-y American, some small American twists on Greek classics. They have this beautiful outdoor area that's open and just bustling with people all summer.
It's the name Platia. Got it. Okay.
There's the Platia. Yep. Yeah. And then fast casual, it has to be this restaurant called Charcoal Flame, where the owner there hand packs, authentic pork and chicken gyro cones.
No way.
Stacks them up, and the gyro's incredible. I mean, it's like being in Greece. It really is.
No way. What was that one called?
Charcoal Flame.
Charcoal Flame. Okay, I'll have to remember it next time I'm in town visiting family or something. That's good to know.
Yeah. So yeah, there you have it. Yeah, you come out. I'll take you over there. Bring you and your family over there.
Deal. Sounds good. Thank you, Father Kosmas. Thank you, Father Kosmas, for joining us. I really, I enjoyed getting to hear a kind of, a unique path to the priesthood and a unique story in serving the metropolis in the capacity that you do. And I think it was really, it's a very encouraging account of your experience with youth ministry, especially to have these booming programs that really seem to be going on all throughout the year, that gives young people and kids the opportunity to connect to the church through these programs, through a young priest like yourself, because I just think that's probably one of the biggest needs that the church has right now. And it sounds like you guys out in the metropolis of Chicago are firing on all cylinders on that account. And that's I think that's a very hopeful message for all of us to hear.
Yeah, thank God. It's a group effort. Obviously, the leadership of our hierarch, Metropolitan Nathaniel. We have so many unbelievable young adult leaders who really have helped us build that all cylinders type of program, for youth and young adults, and I'm fortunate to be a part of it with them. So it's fun. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you again, Father Kosmas. We know a lot of people will enjoy hearing your story and about all the good things that you're doing. And we wish that God blesses you with the strength and energy to keep going, because I know it can be, it can be taxing, but it's well worth it. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, everybody,
Thank you, Christo.
yeah, man. And thank you, everybody, for watching. And we look forward to seeing you next time on Path to the Priesthood.